Good morning everybody, hope you're doing well, hope you're staying safe. It's a much better day in Orlando today. It's Friday the 1st of May, pinch punch, first of the month. If you do that, get in quick. News today is US cases slightly up, Florida cases slightly down, good news. Governor DeSantis released his executive order late on Wednesday. I actually missed that yesterday, but it was late on Wednesday. The report from the Florida Taskforce was also released. There's news on where Governor DeSantis departed from the recommendations of his task force. That's interesting. DeSantis is going to speak today in two locations. He didn't speak yesterday. Jerry Demings did, and he gave his views on DeSantis's executive order. And finally, Epic Universe is delayed now by a year. It was going to open in 2023. It's now going to open in 2024. So we'll see why and what's going on at the moment. Not all construction stopped, but it is delayed by a year. So that's the news headlines for today. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you'll get this every day, or every day that I do it. It's most days. So please do that and you won't miss a thing. Okay, let's get to the news.
Daily cases in the US on Thursday stood at 30,829, which is up slightly from Wednesday, and it seems that states which were not seeing a rise in cases previously are now. The Florida Department of Health recorded 527 new cases on Thursday, while Worldometers said it was 497. That's a slight increase on Wednesday, but a downward trend is being maintained. 18 deaths were recorded, the lowest in a month. Late on Wednesday evening, Governor DeSantis issued an executive order for Phase 1, Safe, Smart, Step-by-Step Plan for Florida's Recovery. This sets out in writing what he said at Wednesday's press briefing, and I'll put a link to the executive order in the description to this video. Some of the wording in the executive order is not mandatory. For example, the executive order related to senior citizens and individuals with significant underlying medical conditions says they are strongly encouraged to stay at home and take all measures to limit the risk of exposure to COVID-19. Significantly, the executive order also says that people should avoid congregating in large groups, and they should avoid non-essential travel outside the US and cities outside of Florida with significant cases of COVID-19. That doesn't mean a ban. The full recommendations report by the Recovery Task Force for Florida was issued on Wednesday. It's 35 pages long, and I'll put a link in the description to this video. It appears that Governor DeSantis departed from the recommendations of his task force. The task force recommended reopening restaurants if they limited capacity to 50% of normal, while DeSantis insisted on 25% to begin with. Similarly, he declined its recommendations to reopen movie theatres and personal services establishments, including hair salons, at 50% capacity. The task force also wanted to reopen sporting venues and gyms at limited capacity, but DeSantis rejected that proposal also. Governor DeSantis did not hold a press briefing on Thursday, but is due to speak today at two different locations, and I'll bring you that tomorrow. Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings spoke yesterday about Governor DeSantis' plans to reopen Florida and said they were sensible. He said that while businesses can follow the governor's orders for opening on May the 4th, that does not preempt local government to come up with guidelines that work for their community. Mayor Demings went on to say, while in many instances it has a happy balance between the health and safety needs of Floridians versus the economic well-being of Floridians, it does have some ambiguities that will require clarification during the coming days. Demings is still considering taking a slower approach than Governor DeSantis. He said it could be a while longer before businesses begin to reopen in Orange County. A curfew remains for all of Orange County from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily, and the mayor said he has no plans to lift that anytime soon. He also didn't give an exact date for when businesses would reopen, but said he doesn't want to rush it and risk seeing a spike in coronavirus cases. Demings also said he could see many businesses not being ready to reopen by Monday with proper precautions in place. There is a nationwide shortage on personal protective equipment as well as hand sanitizer, two requirements of the governor's mandate. Finally, it was announced yesterday that Universal Orlando's new Epic Universe theme park has been delayed by a year due to coronavirus. However, construction will continue with around $300 million worth of construction that's underway at the time. This construction is likely related to site development and road extension work at the site.
So US cases slightly up on Wednesday. The reason being that it looks like states that weren't peaking are now getting towards peak or are peaking. Florida sits number 7 in the rankings for the 50 states, but there were like 8 or 9 states below Florida that now have more cases yesterday than Florida did. So that just suggests that they're reaching their peak, which is just adding to the overall total for the US. Good news on Florida though, that does continue to come down in daily numbers of cases, as does daily deaths, which is really good news. Governor DeSantis did release his executive order on Wednesday night, so that just puts into phrase whatever he said on Wednesday afternoon. But interestingly, some of it wasn't mandated, it wasn't prescribed, so it seems that you can go around in groups of whatever you like without being told not to by the cops. So quite why he's done that, I don't know. He's advised vulnerable people to stay home, which is fair enough. When you can't order people to stay home, really. The full report from the Florida Florida Taskforce was released also, and it's really interesting to see where Governor DeSantis departed from the recommendations of his task force. So, not to reopen bars, not to reopen gyms and sporting venues. I mean, how the heck the task force could come back and say, we think it's a good idea to open sporting venues in phase 1 is nuts to me. And I'm really pleased that DeSantis has taken a sort of slower approach in reopening Florida. I think that will stand him and us in a very good stead. So well done, Ron DeSantis there. I don't know what he's going to say today. We don't seem to have an agenda. He's going to speak, I think, in Jacksonville and Tallahassee today. So I don't know what he's going to say. It's probably about testing and how things are going. I can't imagine he's going to say too much more that's going to be earth-shattering, given that he only released the Exec Order on Wednesday. Jerry Demings does, again, seem to have a little slower approach, even more so than Governor DeSantis. It's him who will decide what happens in Orange County, even though he has now deferred when Disney, Universal and SeaWorld can open to those entities. But he reckons that places aren't going to be ready to open by May the 4th, just because they need the equipment that's been mandated in the executive order. So that's probably fair enough. We might see a drip feed from May the 4th if those establishments can get PPE and hand sanitizer and can mark out the floor and all that good stuff. But yeah, I do think that maybe the likes of Disney Springs, who are going to have massive supply line issues probably in order to get their restaurants open and their stores open. The stores probably have a backlog of stock from prior to the close down, but the restaurants won't. You know, they usually, I guess, don't use frozen produce, so they're going to have to get fresh produce from their supply lines, who in turn might have an issue getting that stock. So it's going to be interesting to see how fast Disney Springs and Universal City Walk reopen. And then Epic Universe, delayed by a year, they say, due to coronavirus. So due to coronavirus doesn't mean they can't get the people to work on the site, I believe. It means that they're having a complete rethink on what Epic Universe is going to have to look like in the kind of the new world post COVID-19. So there'll probably be some redesign in that. That's going to take up the bulk of the year, I guess. Redesign, going through committees and rubber stamping stuff before it gets back through the city for their rubber stamp, and then repricing by contractors and then back to site for construction. So that's probably what the year's delay is. There still is what Jerry Demings said is $300 million worth of construction going on, which is probably infrastructure stuff, which doesn't need COVID-19 redesign. So all good, we keep going. It keeps people employed mainly as well, which is great. So there we have the news for today. Really no update from Disney, Universal or SeaWorld on reopening at all. My gut feel still 1st of June for resorts, a little after that maybe for parks, maybe the same day. And then for SeaWorld, same, maybe 1st of June for park reopening. It's got no hotels obviously. And then Universal Orlando, probably 1st of June for resorts, as they're taking bookings for the 1st of June, and then they may reopen a park or two at the same time or slightly after, depending on how quickly they can get people trained up. Remember, it's 50% park capacity, and we don't know yet who's going to be allowed in. Florida residents, AP holders, anybody from America, people from outside America, not a clue yet. That news hasn't been divulged by any of the entities that own parks here. So that's it. That's the news for today. Probably join me tomorrow for a roundup of what DeSantis said in his press conferences today, and if Jerry Demings has won as well. I know that his Taskforce is meeting today, so I probably will bring you that news tomorrow as well. Until then, stay safe, stay well, see you tomorrow. Bye bye for now.